Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In the Trenches. I got to be honest with you all, I'm very excited for tonight's guest. He has appeared in over 160 Hollywood films. He is an actor, producer, and writer. You may know him from the film That Thing You Do starring Tom Hanks, my friend Jonathan Sheck. How are you, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man.
Welcome
Good to be here.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This is a delight having you. We talk at all kinds of parties, and I find we always find ourselves alone while everybody else is doing their thing, nerding out on film and like, hey, this and that. So I'm honestly very delighted to have you here. You know, you have. I mean, just a second ago we were talking about a casting with David Fincher. You know, the people you have worked, the talent you have worked alongside is incredible. How do you where did it all start? I mean, dating back to when did you want to become
an actor?
Well, you actually started off modeling, right? Wasn't that like?
Well, I was at college at University of Maryland, UMBC to be precise. I went from Maryland.
Sure.
But and I was an economics major. And I was having such a hard time reading the textbooks. And so much so that I asked my roommate at the time, one of my roommates, and he was from Africa. So his English was his fifth language.
Okay.
And I would give him this textbook. I was like, can you read this? And he read it. And he was like, I was like, can you comprehend that? And he's like, yeah. And he explained to me what it was about. I'm like, I can't read that stuff and comprehend it, and I can't give it back, and I'm not doing well in my tests. I can get by, but I'm not doing well. And it was just driving me crazy because I really wanted to do well in college. I wanted to do well. I wanted to do well in life. I didn't know where I was going to go. And I took one acting class. Sam McGrady had this acting class. I took it and literally said to myself, I have a better chance of making it as an actor than I do anything else. And so I went to California. And I went to California. There was a dance troupe called Chippendales.
Okay.
And Chippendales had given me an audition, so it gave me an opportunity to go out to California. It was with Mike Black. He was a choreographer, and I could dance. And he put me through all the paces, but I didn't know if it was necessarily going to be my thing. I wasn't really into it as much as they would have liked me to be. And I was at the Fiddler Cafe.
Fiddler, yeah.
Remember Fiddler Cafe?
Fiddler. Yeah, is it still there?
Is it? No, it's gone. Beverly Boulevard. Yep. The COVID knocked it out. So, and this man named Peter Savick, he's a hairdresser. You can imagine, it was 1990, 89. He had a scarf over his head. He had earrings from all along his ears like this. He had a little goatee, and he had a robe on. And he walks up to me at the cafe. Walks up to me, and I'm like, hello. And he's like, excuse me, are you a model? And I was like, I'm whatever you think I am. I'm like, yeah, I've done some modeling, and I really have done modeling. Sure. And he goes, well, I'd like to take you to this agency called Wilhelmina.
Yep.
And I remember I was just like, oh yeah, sure. When? And he was like, we can go this afternoon if you want. And wow. I walked, yep. I went to Wilhelmina. I had a bicycle. I drove over to Wilhelmina, and Terry Hinckley and Mary Anderson. She just walked through the door. Mona, my agents, they were all like, "You could totally do this. You really."
How long into being in LA was this?
It was a week.
You were just a weekend.
Maybe 10 days. Yeah. And so I told him, I was like, listen, I don't really want to model. I really want to act. They were like, listen, we can set you up. We'll find the best acting teachers here for you. And while you're doing that, you'll work. And I was like, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm not going to go back to college? 'Cause I still got to finish. And they were like, well, just play it out. Within a week, I met Herbert's. Yeah, I met Herbert's. And Herbert's just shot me, and then I was in.
Oh yeah, I mean.
And he,
did he shoot you as a test, or, I mean?
I remember they sent me over to his place, and he was so kind. He was so nice.
What phase was this in his life?
He was her boots.
Cool.
It was the,
Yeah.
George Michael,
Sure.
Naomi Campbell.
Yeah.
I mean, all the supermodels
Yeah.
were coming in and out.
Sick.
And so he just told me, he was like, Jonathan, I'm going to put you in this ad. I can't remember what it's for, probably for Armani, I think.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was good to go. So they would hire me, and then they booked me. And so I would get booked. I went and did a bunch of test photography before that. It was all within this week. Leslie Whitlock shot me. Cliff Watts, who was one of the biggest photographers in the world right now, became a really close friend to me. And so,
still friends with him?
Yeah, still friends with him. And so, yeah, but I was studying every single day, put those paychecks in the bank account. And I met a great acting teacher named Roy London. And Roy London was like everything. And in that class was like Michelle Pfeiffer, Gina Davis, Brad Pitt.
Shit.
It was like, and you didn't know who they were. at the time. Hank Azaria. Wow. It was like, you watch people act, you're like, oh my God, I get up there and try to do the same thing.
Was Brad Pitt even good back then, or was he?
It was stunning. I couldn't take your eyes off him. He was.
If there was a man crush for me, it had to be probably Brad Pitt.
Yeah, but the way he would do his scenes, like you just were like, what's he gonna do next?
Do you know what I love? Well, we're on a Brad Pitt kick, but I just love how in some of his movies, I think his shtick is food. Have you noticed that? In a lot of his movies, he's just doings.
And that's what we learned. Yeah. Roy would always be like, you got to cover it up with doing. So we'd be on stage and we bring stuff in to do in the scene. Yeah, doings.
Yeah, he does a lot of doings. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, that's what Lily. That was it.
Wow.
Then I got the bug, and I was like, I'm not going to take any acting gigs.
This was during like the glory days of Hollywood too. Not in the 50s. No, I mean like what year was this in LA? You're talking
88, 89, 90.
Yeah, I mean
91.
The big years.
Yeah, I was around Madonna all the time.
Were you?
Because of Herb. And Peter Savick was Madonna's makeup artist. Yeah.
So when did you get the big role? When did you finally get that thing you do? Explain how that happened.
Well, that thing you do is 96. So
okay, so there's a lot of time.
So I had two roommates, and we were all doing the same thing, studying real hard and booking. They were booking more commercials than anybody in the world.
Really?
He just was like the commercial guy.
He can make a lot.
His name is Alan Marshall. Did you work with him?
No.
So yeah, he made tons of money. I mean, he made a lot of money, and I just got by. I did one commercial for. Oh my God, not Tony Scott, Ridley Scott. For Ridley Scott. I did a commercial for Ridley Scott. Yeah. They paid me $35,000 cash.
What was the spot?
It's for Pepsi overseas in Europe. Swear to God.
Dude, I would love to see. I mean, I remember being at RSA.
Yeah.
When
that was where I did it.
Yeah. When Marcus Nispel, the director who did Pathfinder and some other movies, he put out an ad in Hollywood Reporter about SAG. Remember that with the African lady with the boobs?
Oh wow.
Anyway, Ridley was off in Italy doing Hannibal, and I was in the office when the phone call came in from Ridley to sit with Marcus, and Marcus is like this Austrian German, ripping. I mean, you could hear how loud through the conference room over a phone speaker he was getting served. He was just pissed. Representing my company, RSA, you do not blah 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 blah. It was beep, got the boot.
Huh.
Because really RSA is, you don't mess with. It's a serious firm, production company.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What was where was the spot in overseas?
Well, it was filmed in LA, and it was Diet Pepsi. I'm thinking it was Diet Pepsi. I mean, that's what it was a long time ago.
Do you have a favorite director you've worked for?
Overall,
everything you've done. Tom Hanks. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, it is Tom Hanks
because
his vision.
Because he knew how to speak to me as an actor.
Oh yeah.
And it was at a critical part of my life, and he really nurtured me and took great care of me.
Really.
So the kindness and care made my performance better than what I was bringing, even though I was bringing a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he a patient director? Is he?
I give a perfect example. When we shot That Thing You Do,
yeah,
man, I've always never been able to like articulate what I want. So there's this big breakup scene with Liv Tyler. Mm-hmm. And I knew that my character would be hated at that point. But there was a part of him that was so important to tell. And that was that he was an artist, that he loved his music.
I felt that. I hated you.
And so I asked the prop guys to give me a bunch of strings that I could string my guitar while this is going on.
I remember that.
Doings. Like Brad Pitt. And I was like, so I was just stringing one, and we went through so many takes that I ran out of like the right string. So I had to use the bigger, thicker string for the lower one. Yeah. And I was like, is anyone going to notice?
Yeah. Is it a bass string and a guitar?
And finally, Tom, so I did the scene again, and I was like, he never took that many takes, and he would leave me in the room. He would come in. He kept looking at me, watching me do it, right? And then he would go back behind the monitor, and he finally came in and goes, "It's about your guitar." And I was like, yeah. Yeah, he's in love with this. Yeah. He doesn't care about her.
Yeah.
He's in love with this. Yeah. He doesn't want anything to get in the way from him and his music. So he's stringing his guitar.
Yeah.
And so he took the shot. Instead of having to hear, opened up me and the guitar. You'll see it in the movie.
Yeah, I know this exact scene. Yeah. Was it at the Coconut Grove or something? Was that?
It was in backstage of where they filmed Price is Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It was all the stages back there. We filmed that.
All those locations are gone. I remember shooting or going location scouting at the all those hotels where the Coconut Grove was. The
was it Ambassador
Hotel? Yeah. God, yeah. I mean,
they're all gone now.
Yeah, like it was a high school.
Well, they should have knocked it down long time ago. God.
But I mean, they had the Robert Kennedy assassination.
I know. We went there.
They're showing the fucking bullet in the.
I know. I went down there too. I checked it out. Yeah. Oh we shot that thing you do there.
God, I know.
Yeah.
That's such a great film. Has moving to Nashville, how was that decision? I mean, obviously you moving from LA and you made so many contacts and, you made a life for yourself in LA. What was the turning point to move to Nashville?
Well, my son was going into schools. Okay. And so...
Yeah, you're like, I'm not...
I was like looking at those California schools and I was like, why am I doing this? This is insane.
Yeah.
Like, do I really want to raise my child? This is what it was. I did not want to have to call Tom Hanks to get my kid into school.
Sure.
And that was where I felt like was needed because it was like, who's the who? And like, I had done all this work but I wasn't like in LA all the time. I always traveled. So I didn't like build this rapport with a lot of people. So Julie my wife didn't really deserve to, keep me dragging her through it. And I said, we should think about, where we go. And the industry changed so much at that time that I just said, when I left Maryland and went off into the unknown, it took care of me. And so I knew that I left everything behind in Los Angeles, moved forward so that my son could go to a really good school here in Nashville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. We got into the school by the first time that we met with the school, and that meant the world to me. I'm dyslexic, meaning my son is dyslexic. So I knew he would struggle in school if I didn't get him to the right school. And I didn't want him to go through the suffering that I had gone through. I didn't think it was fair to him. But I knew he was dyslexic and it was gonna happen.
But you were able to recognize it.
Yeah.
Early. You noticed it in college, right?
Yeah, but I didn't know it at the time. Okay. I didn't realize
you were just on to like, I'm not retaining. I had my reading. Yeah, but
like it was
you're getting Camden at 6, 5.
Yeah. So when he was getting ready for school, I was ready to take care of him, to give him the best opportunity in this world. So Nashville presented itself, and it was like 2018, and then I like. Even having cousins here and family here, and Julie has a wonderful family, and they, they just embraced us. And so I was like, let's go. And so I literally got rid of everything and I moved out here and I made 5 phone calls. I called Tom Hanks. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Nick Gonzalez, Steve Zahn, and said, okay, I moved. Now I finally moved. Like Zahn was like, you should have moved a long time ago. I was like, but I don't have any contacts to get any more work. So I need you guys to help me. Frank Grillo was the other one. And I was like, I literally don't have any income. Like nothing's coming my way. I don't know what, I can't audition. I can't fight for anything. I need help. And Nick, all of them had opportunity for me. But Nick Gonzalez hooked me up with Gary Wheeler. Mm-hmm. And Gary Wheeler said, I'd like to hire you for this movie I'm doing called Blue Ridge. It's about a guy who leaves Los Angeles, moves to a small town to be closer to his family, and becomes a town sheriff. He's a former vet, and he thinks he's going to take it easy and be in a small town. But
so you can relate to that part.
Something horrible happens in a small town. He's going to figure it out. So it was, just it found me, and I found it. And by the grace of God, I literally found my way again. And so I did this pilot. It was a movie, and then it turned out to be they came back to me and said, we'd like to make it into a TV series.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So did it kind of fall in your lap? I mean, did you had the contacts from Tom and them that led to that?
It was all Nick Gonzalez.
Nick. Wow.
So
how was
Nick,
it?
you see this? I know I've told him a million times, but yeah, it was Nick. He was listening to the Spirit, and he was like, "Yeah, you need to meet Gary." And then Gary is incredible.
Doing it your way, different than the LA way, right?
Yeah.
And is that something you knew you were going to have to do when you moved?
Yeah, I knew I would have to either.
Did you fly back and forth, kind of like still holding on to that? Like you're here, but like when I first moved to Nashville, I panicked. I was like, I'm never going to work again. I moved on a whim. Similarly, I was done. I met my wife, Carrie, and I just said, I'm out. That's when I moved. But I was scared. At first I just kept going back and forth. And then it just got less. I wouldn't even color correct my work back in there. Like I couldn't color correct it here. I just, you know what I mean? Like flying back in, spending whatever you're spending to go do that and it just got less and less and less and less until you just you just kind of find your own routine. And it worked out really great for me.
Yeah.
How has, you mentioned dyslexia, how has that presented itself? It's got to be a pretty challenging thing with scripts and lines. And how is that to navigate through? I mean, this kind of...
Yeah, when I get
that's an interesting... Do you panic when you get a script? Like, oh, shit.
Well, if I have time with the script, and I used to, since the very beginning, I had a lot of time. When I would get hired, I would be able to become a magician before I played Houdini.
Okay.
I got to learn how to play music before I was Jimmy.
Sure.
So I had time, and with that time, that's all I need. Because then I soak up these words, and they become part of me. It's when everything's presented and pushed upon me in a very fast way. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is also dyslexic, and he when he gets his Walking Dead monologues, he panics too. But eventually, once you get in front of the camera, you're much better off because then everything starts to make sense. It all starts to come to you. Dyslexics can't read or write well.
Okay.
It takes them more time. They need more time. If they hear something, they usually don't forget it. So listening to audio programs, listening to the dialogue as I'm driving to set.
I was going to ask, can you have somebody read your lines on tape?
Yeah.
And you apply.
Yeah. That makes it.
That would work for me.
Yeah. You might be dyslexic.
I might.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the things I wrote in there were like, what was that? That's.
So, I mean, I'm a writer as well. So it's like, there's new tools that help me dramatically.
Just talk it possibly, right?
Yeah. Talk it out.
And then have someone or yourself flesh it out.
But then, dyslexia, it helps me with the narratives. It really makes things more real and guttural.
Wow.
I find a lot of dyslexics are really good actors. Anthony Hopkins. And we all figure it out. I can't tell you the amount of actors that I've worked with that, like, they're dyslexic. And I'm just like, of course they're dyslexic. It's just like me, man.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it's something I battle. I think the business has done with me. I have a lot of anxiety. You know, I can't even imagine reading scripts and stuff like that for, you know, and to play the role. But sometimes what I deal with is, I find that mental health is not even discussed much in our line of work. I have it in the sense, I feel like mine, it could be like performance anxiety or something. Like, it's like, I feel like I have to be the guy that get to win the game in the end zone with 3 seconds to go every time I go to work. You know, and I guess that has built something over me over the years, or I'm kind of done now feeling like I'm not good enough. You know, when you don't get the phone call, for so many years I would blame myself for that. And I think with experience, with age, you just finally realize, okay, it's me not getting the call is, there can be hundreds of other things not related to the work, you know, but maybe discuss it from your lens, how that plays into your world. Do you have any of those issues when you're applying, like, you know, the actor strike, or the pandemic? I mean, hell, I went 9 months without making a single penny, without a penny.
I know, it's crazy.
I thought it was over. I literally thought I was never go. I'm like, am I gonna go do construction? Do I need to go window wash?
Yeah, I was like, what can I do?
What can I do?
What?
And I started, my father was like, write down what you do. And I'm like,
I know.
I mean,
like, this is it. This is what I do. I don't know anything else. I thought the same thing. Like, it was
I
tough.
remember what got me out of mine. We had moved during the middle of the pandemic, and on a Thursday at like 3:00, I mean, dude, I'm doing checklists. I'm doing like dishes, mopping and vacuuming, and I mean, I'm doing things around the house. There's nothing I'm doing, you know. And I get a phone call from Morgan Wallen, basically saying, "Hey, what are you doing Saturday?" I'm like, Bubba, I'm not doing anything. He goes, "You want to photograph the biggest cover of country music?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Right on.
And it was, man. It made me feel worthy. You know, like, imagine, 8-7 months, whatever, of not doing what I've been doing since 17.
Yeah.
Living, breathing this shit.
Should have made a friggin' movie is what we should have done.
Yeah.
That's what everyone did in LA. They made movies in their own neighborhoods.
We use all of our superpowers.
Yeah, we have more actors here now than I have ever been surrounded by. So,
I mean, do you fight that stuff? You know, because I mean, actors, you just went through paying bills, working off of residuals, living off of residuals while waiting for, I had a friend, DP, saying like, yeah, he hasn't worked in over a year and a half.
yeah. I mean, the one thing about the way that I get through all of it is I've realized that I can change the things that I can, and the things that I can't change, I don't let take over anymore. And I don't allow shame in my life anymore. So I've been able to look at the places where in my life that I shame myself, and when I say shame, I mean, I don't like myself. I put myself down. It keeps me up at night. It worries me. I've gotten rid of all of that, and I've labeled what they are. Dyslexia is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. So no longer is my dyslexia something that keeps me from what I want. It's part of how I get what I want.
Sure.
And there's other areas that are, very much more complex. During the course of my career, things happened that affected me, put me in trauma, and I was able to go into those trauma areas and release this shame.
Sure.
And so when COVID came, I had my sobriety is what kept me going. And I also had a baby during the course of COVID. So yeah. I had something really to keep my attention.
Was sobriety something that you've dealt with as a problem?
Yeah. I've been part of the program for the AA program for over 10 years, but I've been part of other programs that really have changed my life.
Great.
And giving up the shame was the biggest part.
You've been very vocal about a lot of your stuff. You don't hide from it. That's probably the help too.
It puts you in the light. Once you're in the light, you're okay.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I'm good. I don't have to hide from it.
Yeah.
I've noticed one thing about you is your physique is getting bigger and bigger. has working out been something that fueled boredom when you're in between roles, or a vision of something you saw your career going?
Yeah. Yeah, they stopped hiring me, right? And I was like this good-looking character actor, and I thought this made me a really good actor.
Sure.
But what it did was it made me in this new way that they cast, it made me uncastable. One of the things when I first moved out to Nashville, I was still trying to get jobs, and I had a manager who was trying to give me things. And Ava DuVernay, you know her, the big director. Well, there was an HBO series. I was like, I really want this series. I think she'll hire me. And they wanted me to come in, and so I flew myself to Los Angeles. I went to downtown LA. I swear to God, I went through 4 different buildings. They looked like they were falling down. I thought I was going to get mugged twice. I go to this casting, and she has me read for the cab driver. So that's where my life has gone now. I'm the cab driver in this television series. Sure. I'm like, okay, why wouldn't you just hire me as a cab driver? I mean, I'm a great cameo.
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you're in power now, so
Absolutely.
I guess
absolutely
you do what you want. So I read for and the casting director goes, you should really read for this role. And I was like, look, if I try to read that, it's not going to work. I'm dyslexic. It's just going to make me nuts. It's going to make me really upset, and it's going to hurt me. And I don't want to hurt myself anymore. Let me take this back to Nashville, and I'll send you a tape. And she said, okay. And I went back home, made a great tape, sent it to her. It was one of my best performances of my life, and that's saying a lot. I've done a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just nuanced, and it was exactly Ava DuVernay, and it was like, so they put me on hold. And so I kept asking my managers, I'm like, okay, so when's this going to go? They're like, well, they're going ethnic for this role. And they're going for ethnic for this role. And I was like, great, well then, I mean, I should fall in there. I'm on hold. Mm-hmm. Well, when they found out that I wasn't ethnic, they let me go. And so it wasn't about my performance anymore. It wasn't about the work anymore. It was about checking a box.
And that's what I was going to ask you when you said a second ago about the way they're doing things now, is that's checking boxes. I heard the same thing with DPs. They're like, and directors actually, and we need to hire half the amount of white male blah. We need to have female and ethnic diverse directors and DPs.
Yep. So then, but that was the moment I realized that I no longer could be a character actor. That all my work of dialect and everything that I've ever worked on, it was going to have to take a sidebar to be becoming a leading man again.
Okay.
And then that's when I let everybody go, and I worked on this inside here to become a leading man in my life, with my children, with my wife, and in my world. And so that's what I made the big change. I became a leading man again.
That's it. And like that has a lot to do with fitness and
yeah. So I started training every single day so that I wouldn't have. It gets rid of a lot of the negative thoughts. Gets rid of like the negativity.
Because it helps. Yeah, it helps your mind, as well as has it opened doors for you on roles, and do you feel like being more physically dominant? Having a presence on camera has helped you with roles.
Well, I have presence. That's one thing God gave me, was like presence.
Sure. Yeah.
He gave me great presence. So I know that. So physically imposing is something that I thought would work really well for me. I fell into like the leading man in me is like, I'm like the alpha. Yeah. Like I'm the guy that takes care of it. If something goes wrong, I take care of it. Yeah. So I thought it fit into that, the way that I look, when I speak, I'm like my father, who's born in City cop. Mm-hmm. I'm a lot like him in a lot of ways. I've always been active in boxing or
very physical.
Very physical. So training every single day, having wider shoulders. I had a great trainer one time who said, Jonah Hex. I played Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
So I thought Jonah Hex, if he's imposing, if he could take care of anything, he's the fastest gun in the West, but he was also like an imposing guy. He beat the hell out of you. So That's when I really started training really, really hard. And I started to find myself that's who you are. That's who they hire you to be. That's what Brad Pitt knows about himself. That's what all these movie stars know about themselves is they're this thing, and that's the thing that they sell. One brand. And
I was just going to ask you that. I mean, I feel the same way in my world and as a filmmaker. Would you advocate typecasting? Meaning, I want to be a leading man villain. You're a good villain, by the way. You have the eyes, dark features. You know, you have. I mean, do you feel that being? I don't know if typecast is too strong of a word, but you know what I'm getting at. Is like having that thing. I'm that guy. I mean, Brad Pitt. He did World War Z. That was his first kind of blockbuster attempt.
Californication. He did. He played the serial killer in that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but you know. That didn't help him. He realized quickly he can't do that too much. He has to be a leading man.
Yeah.
A romantic leading man. So that's
romantic leading man, yeah.
So that's the lane I put myself in. And
what would be your specific lane?
Romantic leading man.
Okay. You done with the villains?
Yeah, I mean, unless they, if a paycheck comes and the opportunity comes to play a really good villain, I definitely look into it.
Now,
but I'm still crafty as crafty.
Oh, yeah. I know. I mean, yeah. I'm just.
But I know that's what if I want to survive, that's what I have to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, does directing have any play in your, your repertoire?
So this coming season, the second season of Blue Ridge, hopefully it'll be greenlit here very shortly. I already talked to Gary Wheeler and everyone about me directing one of the episodes because
that's cool.
I know I have a film that I want to direct it.
You and I have always talked this is probably the most we've ever talked about the acting side of things because you and I always talk about the making of things whenever we're together. So yeah. I'm intrigued to hear what about directing kind of excites you.
Well, first off, it fits in the brand of being a leading man, but I have so much to give. Mm-hmm. I love my actors. I'm great with actors. I'm great.
Yeah, I mean, the whole gamut.
Yeah, working with the greatest directors, in the world, greatest actors. I want to be able to give a lot back. Now I'm on this side of life, I want to be able to give back. Also, I've been a writer for such a long time. I see things very clearly. I can write really well now.
Yeah, you have a robust knowledge of the full.
Yeah. So I always thought they would hire me as a director from something I wrote. And I found myself that my writing now fits and hopefully, but we're making the movie at the end of the year.
That's cool.
One of the things I wrote.
Is there a style of directing, a director that you maybe kind of mirror your efforts towards?
Well, Gary Wheeler he's really shown me a way directing that I like. Stylistically, Tom was awesome. Tom Hanks was awesome. I'll never forget. I was at a wedding. You'll love this story.
I love stories.
I was at a wedding on the beach in Malibu. It was Melissa Etheridge's wedding, and we're having cocktails, and Tom's there, so I'm over there with Tom, and it's me, Tom Hanks, George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg, the four of us talking. And the little chipper part of me was like, Tom's a really good director. And Tom looked at me like, yeah, they don't say anything. And I was like, and I just was like, no, he really is. He really gets right to the heart for the actor. And he was like,
just took the moment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I don't have any. I have like my only real story of like Hollywood, big Hollywood is walking. I was leaving my location scout in Malibu, and I went to go get lunch over at Moondoggies or whatever it was up there, and out comes
Moonshine. No, not Moonshine. Moon Shadows.
Moon Shadows. And out comes Mel Gibson, and we're just like that. As he walks by, he's like, "Fellas," and there's just this weird thing. Like, God darn, he is just massive. Just the way he carries himself. I can't imagine being. Have you talked to Brad at all since the glory days of when you were younger?
No, we were really good friends when he dated Jennifer Aniston. I was dating Christina Applegate.
Yeah.
I was married. We were both married.
Yeah, sure.
So we would hang out a lot then because Jennifer had a show, Friends, you may have heard of it, and Christina show Jesse was filmed on Warner Brothers lot. So we were always around them. And then I did that film with Gwyneth Paltrow, and she was dating Brad at the time. And then we had the acting studio. It was like I had a really good history with him. And I was friends with Brad for a while, but then once he divorced, I divorced. It was just like I couldn't. Hopefully one day I'll get to see him, say hi.
Yeah. Are you still taking auditions back in LA, or are you just saying I'm doing it my way and you'll send tapes back? Or
I almost got a Damien Chazelle movie. I really wanted this movie, and I contacted him, and I went out there and had lunch with him, and he tried to find me a role in the film, but it was too late because before, like my agents or my managers, they couldn't get me in time. Well, I didn't even know about it, but by the time it came to me, they had already cast most of the other roles, and so I went out there and I had a beautiful lunch with him, and we had the best time. And he was like, he loves that thing you do. Mm-hmm. He's hired Tom Everett Scott. He's hired Ethan Embry. Oh. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to find something in this movie. And it was, what was that movie? It was called, I can't remember the name of it, but I didn't get it. Mm. Yeah. So things like that I would fight for.
Do you take the rejections differently now than you did back when you were carving, or do they still hit? Do they still disappoint, or do they linger as long?
You know what? I tend to take everything really personal because I think it is really personal.
Yeah.
Like when I didn't get a part in basically the Band of Brothers 3. I just had a baby. I was during the middle of COVID. I was like, it was hard to get a job. I just moved out here. Tom tried to get me a job. And for some reason, they just didn't hire me. I auditioned for it. And that hurt. It hurt really bad. It was like, but that one thing could have gave me a lot of other opportunities. And they gave me the opportunity, and it just didn't happen. And then I was like, but then it's not really, you can't blame Tom. You can't really blame the production. It's like, there's no one to blame. It just didn't work.
Sure.
It just didn't blend it for some reason. Then when I go out there to Playtone and hang out with my friends, the main producer, Gary, says, you should have played that part. And then you're like,
yeah,
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It would have changed my life.
I know.
But they didn't think of it at the time. And it wasn't my lack of ambition because I was contacting them every day.
Sure.
I was trying to make sure, like, don't forget me, because I know people forget.
Do you feel like that if you were to give some advice to young actors, and because one thing I've gathered from you in the hour is that you're very not aggressive, but you're not afraid to reach out and say, hey, I'm here. It's just a phone call. I find myself not doing that when really I should, because what you just said triggers something in me. And it's like, hey, I'm here. They don't think of you in that moment. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're not the one. It just means in that moment. Hell, if you had reminded them the night before or whatever, done. Get it.
Yeah, I think you got to know your space though.
Yeah.
Like I could do that with Tom Hanks.
Not many people can say that.
he tries, man. He really does. He's a really good friend of mine. I don't care about any of it else. He is going to be my friend till the end. That's awesome. And that's the most important thing.
Did he just come about? You said earlier, what was it that united that friendship when you met? I mean, what was fueling you during that production that made you guys have such a long-lasting...
Well, we were really intimate. Every decision was made. He was the director, so I was constantly with him.
Sure.
And then after that, we toured Europe. And we toured Japan.
Press.
And me and Tom, I would always hang out with Tom. You find any footage, I'm like hanging out with Tom. The other guys are running around with Tom. I just liked him.
Is Tom Hanks a film nerd? I can see Spielberg. Do they? When all three of you were just sitting, all four of you were sitting at the party at the beach. What were you talking about? Like, other than you said that he's a good director, but like, was it like film nerd shit?
Yeah. I was talking about. Yeah, I mean, it was George Lucas, so he was commanding the conversation. Spielberg's a really nice guy as well. Plethora of, and they're really good friends, Spielberg and Tom. And I'm sure Lucas felt like he needed to. It was just complete regular people, but they just talk big ships, you know.
Do you ever get a pinch me moment? Do you have any pinch me moments where, you know, you try not to, like, I'm standing here having a conversation with Spielberg, I you know, holy shit kind of thing, and outside looking in? Do you ever have those? Or do you just say, God, my life is weird. How did I get here?
It's always there.
Yeah.
I'm always in those conversations. I always was.
Yeah. Would you give your younger self any different advice coming up? What would that advice be?
I would have got sober a lot sooner.
Really?
Yeah. Because it's not so much about being sober and not drinking. It's about a spiritual solution that I thought I was part of, but I really wasn't, because I had all this shame that was in my way. If I didn't have that shame, I'd have a different trajectory for my career. For sure.
In what shame?
So in the very beginning of my career, before my coach and I were like, you got to wait till the right opportunity. My roommates, they came back from an audition, and one of them said, you have to go out for this film. And it was a Franco Zeffirelli movie. Okay. And he said, you're perfect for it. Well, after 1,000 people auditioned for this thing, I'm the guy. Me and my roommate are the two guys that they fly out to Rome to screen test. Oh, right. It was
screen test in Rome.
Screen test in Rome. It was a big deal. I mean, I had no idea what was going on with Cinecittà. I met Roman Polanski on the steps. Talked to Roman Polanski. It was amazing. But that whole experience was sabotaged by Franco, who has this way about him that in the middle, after the screen test, he came in my room in the middle of the night, uninvited. Oh. He literally came into my room.
The director. And that caused me a lot of trauma. I didn't know quite what to do. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know what was expected of me. And then to work with him on set.
Yeah, so I was really literally frightened. But whatever happened, he was on top of me. I was sexually molested. Oh. That's what happened. And I came back to Los Angeles, and I had my roommate with me. I didn't tell my roommate because I didn't know what to tell him. I didn't know what had happened. And that was probably the one thing that held me back from really allowing things to happen. I would sabotage things because I was scared things would happen again. Interesting. I won the role. Like, you would think, well, maybe that night, was the reason why I won the role. That's not why. I mean, I know why. I was very charismatic and very interesting to look at. Camera loves me, and it was perfect for the role. Just flat out perfect. Well, I went back to Los Angeles and I got a manager because I didn't have a manager or agent or anything. So no one was in between us.
Oh, you did it all.
And that was all that was the way that Zeffirelli.
Didn't have a shield.
Yeah, and that's how Zeffirelli worked. That was his MO.
So he kind of preyed on that.
Yeah, he was good at it.
Wow.
So I got a manager and I went and got an audition for a soap opera, and they offered me the soap opera. And then my manager, who I'd just gotten, was a smart manager, reached out to Zeffirelli's producers and said, Jonathan's going to do this soap opera. Do you want him for the film? Yeah. And they were like, we want him for the film. So then the manager came to me and said, you could do this soap opera, or you could do this film. You got to go do this film. Franco's Every is a big deal. And I was like,
oh boy, here we go. Yeah. He doesn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're living in
complete
dark.
Yeah. And
pushing it.
And they said this. They said, we would like for Jonathan to go to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts and study dialect. And you were going to learn English dialect. Wow. You're going to learn proper walk, talk, all the things. They're going to teach you basically to become Englishmen. Okay. And even though my character was Italian. Okay. So I did it. But, when I went out there, I was very scared of him. I would say things to him like, I'm not gay. I really respect you. Thank you for thinking of me that way, but I'm just not like that. Sure. And he was aggressive, but he didn't do anything. I was fully aware of what was happening. He said he wasn't going to touch me again. I was scared every single night that I went to bed. But what the thing was is they would put all this dialogue in front of me and try to get me to do the English dialect, and I couldn't read. So it was torture.
Wow.
And I have a goiter in my throat. It's been there since that time period. So the photos before you could never see the goiter. It's basically a hole in my thyroid. And it was from that stress, from that situation. And then we went out to Rome and we shot the movie, and I was still stressed, scared to death of this guy. He was the guy who was, he's a director. So I just entered this world. I had my acting teacher on the phone every night, talking to him. Like not only was he helped me with the scenes, but he was helping me because I was so petrified of this man. He was like, you don't have to do anything you don't want.
Yeah.
And so I had that. So then I made that movie. Zeffirelli didn't like me. He was brutal throughout the whole thing.
I could imagine that.
He'd drink a little bit, and he was really horrible. Drink a lot. He was horrible to everybody, but he was really horrible to me because he wanted me to be something that I wasn't going to become for him. But he had this one experience.
He can easily throw you in a loop too, And I tried this, and you're like, God, I don't know who you are anymore.
Yeah, it was really.
If he wants to play that.
Yeah, and I had my coach. Okay. Thank God I had my coach.
Okay.
So what happened was when I came back from that experience, my acting coach passed away, August 8th, 1993. And I was and then I get a phone call from Zeffirelli's producers, and that Franco is looped. He's going to use another actor's voice over mine. So he's not going to give me a chance to loop my lines for the movie. And I learned later from Franco that he never wanted to see me again. Because he felt rebutted, or like I was a romantic lure to him that didn't happen like all the other people that he had in his life. And so he dubbed me a voice. So basically my voice was being taken away in the very beginning of my career, and I didn't know quite what to do. I jumped out of an airplane 30 times, either whether I was going to commit suicide and not pull that parachute, or I was going to hit the ground, Like I was going to pull up and save myself, and I did it every single time. Then I got an audition for Poison Ivy 2, which was called Lily, which is my daughter's name, with Alyssa Milano. That gave me some hope.
I remember that.
Bit. Yeah, it was a real artistic movie. And then after that, I got Doom Generation with Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan, yes.
And Greg Araki film, and I made that movie, and I worked really hard at it, and I did a really good job. Everyone loved me in that movie. And then I got How to Make an American Quilt, and I won all three of those. Yeah. And then, so right after American Quilt is when I auditioned for That Thing You Do. And Tom, when I went in and auditioned, he was there. It was one audition.
And he's there.
And I did it, and he just, I don't know if he did this with everyone, but he was just like, that was awesome. And I knew I was awesome. I literally was so in it. I dressed the part, walked in there. I wasn't going to let this opportunity go by. And I never had to audition again. One time, and I got that film, and then they put me through training. But I had this haunting from Zeffirelli all the way through my career. So I think if I was to look back, the long answer is, if I looked back, I would have told that younger myself, like, you were molested. You need to get help. You're going to be scarred for the rest of your life if you don't. Mm-hmm. Trauma is a time traveler. It's going to catch up to you down the road, and it's going to cause you a lot of harm. And it did. And that's one thing I'd love to be able to tell a younger self. Even though now all that trauma that I've worked through, and I understand who I am, I got rid of all that shame. I don't carry it with me anymore. I make sure that others are healed by my experience, and they don't experience the same thing that I did.
Extremely brave of you to come out.
Yeah, well,
say that.
So we can imagine when the Me Too movement happened.
Jesus.
It was Rose McGowan.
Yeah, Rose was heavy with Harvey.
So I literally was on Twitter. I saw Rose talk about what happened with Harvey, and I was like, "That's what happened to me." That's exactly what happened to me. And I started studying it up, and I called Rose and I told her my experience, and she was like, "Jonathan, I'm so sorry." She goes, "Well, now it explains what your behavior in the Doom generation." And I was like, "Was I horrible?" She was like, "You're just really tough. Like you're just pushing everything, pushing me too far." And it was my first job. And I was like, "Well, I wanted you to be good because I wanted the movie to be good because I didn't want to fail anymore."
Yeah.
But we became super close from that. But you can imagine I had Alyssa Milano and then Rose McGowan. And so when the Me Too movement happened,
sure.
I felt a real true obligation to be part of a movement that, so being a male is a unique voice. And I stepped up and I was that voice. I really helped a lot of people.
You should be real proud of yourself. Yeah. For sure. Is that now, I mean, I can completely see why now asking that question of like why Tom has a special place. Cause
he saved my life.
Yeah.
That goodness.
I can see that.
I remember sitting and just brooding, just like I was, you don't know, like you're not thinking of that time. You're not thinking of the time, but it's like world isn't working for you.
Yeah.
And here I am in this movie with Tom Hanks and he was just light. And he literally, I remember him dancing across the thing because he saw me in such a bad place. And he was just like, "Buddy, like, it's okay. You're all right." But little thing about Tom Hanks. So when we were touring in Europe, they said, what song would you want to ask Tom? And, you know that song Radiohead, "I'm a Loser"?
Blur.
What's it?
I think it's called
"I'm a
Blur.
Creep."
Oh yeah. Creep.
Creep. Yeah. He chose that song. And I was like, how do you relate to that song? You're incredible. But yet he related to that song. Yeah.
Is there a reason why?
I think he has that, and he's not just one thing. He's all. His whole thing is equipoise. So he's a balance of. He would always talk about equipoise.
Sure.
Balance of life. So it was the dark and the light, the balance of everything.
Gotcha. Would that be the character you played in That Thing You Do? Would that be your favorite character you've played to date? Is there a character that it resonates with maybe yourself?
Well, the character, Justin Wise.
Okay.
The character in Blue Ridge.
Blue Ridge.
Yeah.
I was getting to that. So is that what you're up to now? Now this strike is over and you're waiting for hopefully season 2 for 10 episodes, right?
Yep. Yeah, we hope to be shooting here in the coming months.
Well,
we're going to gear up to it, and then we'll probably film the second season hopefully next year. Everything's still the markets and everything got to be right, but it looks good. I feel very good about it. I'm very grateful to have that experience, and I really love it. I love the people. I love my crew. I love everyone involved.
That's how you know it's a good job. I mean, a good show.
And I get to lead, and I have great people to work with. Gary Wheeler is amazing. All of them, everyone involved with it. It's been just incredible. Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you do sitting on the director's chair at the helm of it.
I know. I can't wait to see. Yeah.
Then we'll have to have you back out and talk about that experience. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out, man. I really do. Thank you for coming, man. I know you're a busy guy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.